Other Record Labels is supported by Lander. As you may know, here at Other Record Labels, we've always been on the lookout for a reputable digital distributor that we can confidently recommend to our community, something I get asked about on a weekly basis. And we're proud to say that we finally found it with Lander Digital Distribution. Not only are they an incredible company with so many features included in your membership, but they're also a Spotify preferred distributor. Lander makes getting your music on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, TikTok, and tons of other platforms incredibly easy. Plus, they offer fair pricing, no hidden fees, and artist-friendly terms, which is exactly what independent artists and labels like us need. And I'm personally quite fond of the mastering services and the free plugins and some of the samples that you get as well. I'm really incredibly grateful to Lander for making these weekly episodes possible. If you're looking for a trusted distributor to help get your music heard, check out Lander using our special link in the episode description, or just head to otherrecordlabels.com/Lander. That's spelled Landr. Hello and welcome to a new episode of Other Record Labels. I'm your host, Scott Orr, where we talk about the art and culture of running an independent record label. Today on Other Record Labels, we're joined by Jamie, the founder of Hotham Sound, an experimental cassette label based in Vancouver, British Columbia. Yay, Canada. Hotham Sound is a label that dives deep, literally and sonically. That was kind of cheesy. We're going to talk today about the label's focus on organic sounding electronic music. We're going to talk about the DIY ethos that runs through its catalog and how visuals and outdated tech and the Pacific Northwest geography influences its aesthetic. I'm excited for us to dive into today's episode. Such a visual label. I mean, that's just kind of like, that's just my preference. And that's what I've always been drawn to Hotham for, is like the visuals. In fact, I've been in such a hurry, but to get up and to get recording, but my releases of yours are kicking around somewhere back there. They might also be at another location where I have my Walkman. But anyway, I have the first MIDI Janitor record, and no, I don't have that one. I have the is it the synthesizer one and Mount Maxwell. Anyway, yeah, Chris and Ruse. Anyway, sorry. Just
no worries.
Okay. Love it. I had this like routine actually with the first Kristen Ruse release, the synthesizer record. I had this like routine, unfortunately never stuck with it, but I had this routine where I woke up in the morning, I put it on, and we had this elliptical in our bedroom, and I put that record on, and I would do like 10 minutes, 20 minutes every morning at like 6 a.m. And I just loved kind of like working out to that record. I felt like I was in the zone. I never kept up with it, unfortunately, as with all exercise.
Yeah, I could see that record being really good for that.
Just, yeah, getting you in the zone, eh?
Yeah, it has a lot of momentum.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to talk about visuals a little bit later, but I want to start with the sonics, because, you know, the sound of the records that I have and the new compilation that's out that I've been listening to. What are the sonic parameters of your record label? I mean, do you have any sonic parameters? As a fan, and someone who's been a fan for, half a decade, I believe there's sonic parameters to the point where when Bandcamp notifies me that you have a new release, I go straight to it. I know I'm going to like it. Do you have sonic parameters?
Maybe in terms of like electronic music.
Yeah.
I've always definitely been interested in more organic sounding electronic music.
Oh, okay. Yeah, me too. Well, there we go.
Yeah, not that I don't like a lot of really digital sounding stuff too, but my personal, a lot of the stuff that really inspired me was more organic in nature.
Like a texture to it.
Yeah, textural and I guess like not so much clubby in nature.
Yeah.
Because I'm not my relationship to music is not very social. It's not very, I'm not a huge live music person. My big relationship with it has almost always been through headphones.
Oh.
So yeah, I've always like sort of geared myself towards music that's more
Yeah.
maybe solitary, organic, less geared towards the club.
Interesting you point that out. That's an observation that once you say it, I know it to be 1,000% true for myself. But yet I never really put my finger on it. I've never identified it in that way before. And I think that's incredible. And I think it's a signature of this type of music, this, ambient, down tempo, neoclassical, whatever, some of the great labels who do this stuff, noise in a way. It's so personal.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, to go back to like, if there's parameters, I'm not sure what they are. I hear it and it feels like it's living in the same place that I want to be in, so I just kind of know it when I hear it. Like,
well, I think that's, 9 times out of 10, when I ask that question, the answer ends up being, and it's hard for people like you to say it because it's arrogant, but it's your ears are the parameters.
Yeah, right. It's curating, so it's curating. It's necessarily egotistical in some way.
Do you ever hear something and go, I like this personally, but it doesn't fit into the catalog?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
That's like one of the hardest parts about doing a label is you hear so much music and there's so much to like. And sometimes you just know it's not right for what you're doing, but you don't want to crush someone's dreams and hopes. It's so brutal to send your music into the world. Like,
it is. Yeah.
So I always try to really let people know when that's the case that, like, it's not you, it's me. Your music is incredible.
Yeah.
It's not right for what we're doing. But,
that's right. Yeah. A lot of artists don't understand that labels are curating, they're creating kind of a sequence of records and a label wants to evolve, or it wants to just, like different seasons on the calendar. And you might submit a record to a label that they just released a record that sounds exactly like yours, which would mean, well, why wouldn't they release yours? But it's kind of because of that reason.
Exact. Yeah. Couldn't agree with that more.
Yeah.
But the labels are always evolving. And just like the way that when you hear an album by an artist and you assume that they're still in that headspace when they're doing promotion and stuff for it. And often they're already way past that. Yeah. They're on to something else and don't even want to talk about the record that's just coming out right now. They're evolving. Their tastes are evolving.
Yeah. It's this interesting dichotomy as we talk, though, because we said originally that the parameters, the sonic parameters are your ears, you're the curator. Yet we've also acknowledged the fact that you can hear something, absolutely love it, but it's not right for the catalog or it's not right for the sequence. So there is some sort of director of photography. There is some sort of script at play that a release needs to fit into.
Yeah, I mean, often it's not so much that I'll hear something that I absolutely love. It's more that I'll hear it and I'll recognize that it's objectively good.
I see.
But it's not, I don't love it. You know what I mean? It's just not my world. It's not my aesthetic.
So I would take it, I mean, I know you've been around for a while and we'll talk about that in a minute. And one of my favorite things about record labels and the way I define a record label, and the thing that was most important to me as a record label, was the way that Bandcamp, your homepage, looks, because nowhere else in the history of time and nowhere else in the world can you see your discography forward facing like that, other than maybe iTunes, but there's other releases in it. But to see what you've accomplished, what your label has accomplished. So when artists who are in the genre go to your Bandcamp, they see what you've done, they hear what you've done, then I imagine they're submitting music to you, other artists who are seeing what you've accomplished and going, hey, I think I could fit into this family. How does that submission process work?
I just get emails.
Yeah. You don't have do you say anywhere on your website that you're open to receiving submissions, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have a link that says you can send submissions here. Yeah, I don't know. I did put up a thing on Instagram a while back saying I'm no longer going to be responding to every submission.
Okay,
because it's just gotten overwhelming.
That's fair.
And I had a lot of guilt around it for the first half of the label's existence, really, because I've sent my stuff out and I know how much it sucks. So I had a real compulsion to respond to every single person and tell them the things I liked about it and explain why I couldn't put it out necessarily, but here's these other labels that might be interested. Wow. And I have a kid now, and it's just like there's just too much stuff. I can't do it.
Yeah. That's very kind, very generous of you. I would like to think I've done that as well. To me, there was like two different kinds of submissions. There was the submission where they clearly didn't research anything about my label.
Oh yeah, that's a whole other, yeah.
And then you're right. Then there's the people where like, this is great, but I'm not currently looking for an artist. Or it's not my genre, but yeah, go check out these other labels.
Yeah. Yeah. The people, you can tell it's just a form letter, like they're just sending it to every label that exists. That's not even worth.
Yeah, good. Yeah. I was feeling like, oh my gosh, you respond to those too. Surprisingly, other record labels gets submissions, all music submissions every day. Like people thinking that the podcast is a record label just because it has record labels in the
I see.
title.
Yeah.
So people will say, "Can you please sign me?" And that's always
my podcast.
Yeah, sure, maybe. So what percentage then? Well, you don't have to give me a percentage, but if you're getting 10 submissions a week, if you're getting 10 submissions a month, 100 submissions a month, how many of those roughly are turning your ear a little bit, and maybe it's something that you want to pursue?
Oof. 5% maybe.
That's pretty good. That's
not a huge amount.
Yeah. And I mean those are people who've done their research, right? And they know they've got a good record, and they know your label, and they're intentionally submitting to your label.
Mm-hmm. Those are the people I respond to, who I can tell they've already have kind of a relationship with the label a little bit at least, and feel like they're bringing something that, from a similar aesthetic or something.
You maybe don't agree with this, and I can't say for sure what your release schedule's been like, but I have always seen titles come from you. It's in my inbox, a couple times a year. There seems to be a consistency to what you've done. I'm sure you've slowed down in the past. I haven't seen to notice
in terms of timing.
Yeah,
there isn't.
Yeah. So do you have any in the back of your mind? Are you like, how many, a certain number of releases you feel like you should do?
I try to do at least 4 a year.
That's cool.
But we're talking now. I mean, I say we, I'm really like, I talked to my wife about this.
Yeah.
But thinking now about doing some vinyl releases too. So if that's the case, then it'll slow down even more, which is kind of a downside too.
Yeah.
Because it's so much more expensive. There's not going to be as many releases. And when you don't put out as many releases, your listenership goes down. That's just
that's right.
how it works.
That's right. Yeah. It takes a while to kind of re-engage with those people, and for them to, I've always thought, your discography is almost like your social media content. It's like, if you stop posting for a while, people forget about you and go somewhere else. Yeah.
And you have to make, I can't remember where this quote is from, but you have to make the new work to sell the old work. Right.
Oh, so my gosh.
There's tape sitting. You put a new tape out, a lot of those older tapes will sell too. So you're kind of constantly nudging people with a stick,
Oh my goodness. I've never heard that quote before. It's amazing though. We're going to pull that and use that because it's so true. And I talk about it in our label mates. I talk about it all the time, and it is 100% true. I know, when there's CDs, when they're vinyl left over, that's okay. They will go. They'll go. Yeah. They'll go with the next release.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so weird. That's so weird. Yeah. That's a great point. That is such a great point. So going back to that schedule, then I remember, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm just going based on like seeing something on social media and seeing it come through email, but I think I recall last year or a year before that you did multiple releases on the same day, or in the same period, that you did more than one release.
Yeah, we tried that once.
Okay.
No, we did 3 releases at the same time.
Okay.
And that was at a time when I was really burnt on mailing, shipping and
Okay.
packing and mailing stuff.
Okay.
And I saw that some labels do that.
Okay.
They batch release.
Break
and
it down.
It seemed to make sense because you could sell 3 tapes and you could ship them all at the same time. And
Yeah.
and it was for people buying too, it's better for them too because they pay less shipping to just get 3 tapes sent to them at once than
For sure.
3 separate tapes. So I tried that, but I just haven't done it since because I'm not even really sure why. Just haven't gotten around to it.
Did they cannibalize each other in any way, or was it
Not at all? It was that was like actually one of the more successful releases that we had.
interesting?
Yeah.
So okay, interesting, because to me, in my mind, from a marketing perspective, it's either going to be they're going to cannibalize each other, or it's going to have a shock and awe effect where, oh my gosh, 3 new titles.
It was definitely the latter.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's encouraging.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know, let's pivot for a second. You work with distributors. Like, do you ship your stuff to Japan?
Yeah, I don't work with any distributors.
Okay.
I do ship it to Japan. There's 2 stores in Japan that carry the tapes.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah, you ship to me, right? I think we...
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we combined a shipment.
We did ship with you once.
I totally forgot that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. Well, that's such a smart way to do it. Okay, so, and I mean, that would be an example then where 3 new titles, 10 of each title, out they go. You're kind of saving on that whole process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was just, now that I'm remembering it, I think I think we had some extra money, and that's why we could do 3 tapes at once.
Okay.
But normally I can't afford to do that.
Sure.
So I've got to kind of do the tape, have the tape pay for itself, and then I can move on.
And then do it again. Yeah. Oh, that's fair.
Yeah.
Well, and I guess, as you're saying, it worked out well, and it's kind of like there might have been a title in there, and I don't even remember the title, so I'm not, but there might have been a title in there that perhaps wouldn't have performed as well on its own, and maybe it was kind of like, the tide raises all boats.
Yeah. I think that is probably why some people batch release.
Yeah.
Too, is that, it makes sense when you've got a label. Like I know Constellation Tattoo does that.
Okay.
They always batch release.
Yeah.
And it's because I think they know that people trust them.
Yeah.
So they have a lot of people who just see the batch release, buy all 3, and that's that.
Do you feel like you've earned that with your fan base, that trust?
I don't know, because I know people say that the label has a constant aesthetic, but I think my tastes are kind of changing, especially in the last year or two.
Mm-hmm.
And I am going to be kind of moving in a slightly different direction. And I think some people might step off at that point.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But other people step on. I mean, you have to.
Yeah, it's normal.
You got to follow what you're interested in.
I think people, if you stayed the same, I think people would churn all the same. I think people would step off if it's like, I don't need another release. It's pretty much going to sound the same.
Yeah, it is. It's starting to feel a bit like that to me.
Yeah. So I think that's okay. I think that's smart. So we've talked about the sonic parameters. Again, what I talked about at the beginning of this call is the visual aesthetic, the visual parameters. I'm kind of curious where you get your design done. Folks who are listening, hothamsoundrecordings.bandcamp.com, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about from a visual standpoint. A lot of the releases embrace the cassette cover, the cassette spine, and the cassette tab as part of the square graphic on digital. Certainly the most recent releases do that. Talk to me about the aesthetic and that kind of what you've created and how important that is, or is it important?
Well, I come from my background is drawing and painting.
Okay.
Photography. I've always been interested in design, even though I don't have any training in design. So I do all the design.
Wow.
The aesthetic is wrapped up in growing up at a time when things look like that.
Okay.
Things look like the images on the covers that we do. So I don't like. I like things that look like they've gone through some kind of printing process.
I see.
And
There's
the natural elements or nature elements or whatever you call them in a lot of the designs are based around the aesthetic of the label being in the Pacific Northwest.
that is
Growing
true.
up here on the Gulf Islands. There's just a certain style of the way that those places at that time were represented in media that I
Yes.
really like in print media.
Yes.
And I have a collection of local publications from this region, especially a lot of counterculture publications that
Mhm.
used old printing processes that were kind of amateurishly done. They have a lot of photography of the area in them, and that's often what I pull from
Interesting.
to make the covers.
Interesting. So not only is it the designer that is consistent, but the source of the inspiration.
No, not totally.
Okay.
I just that's the biggest archive I have, so I always dig
That's
through
fair.
there.
That's fair. I feel like I sort of know what you're saying when it, like of course the pictures involve water, mountains, sky in some cases. Other times the artwork seems like it would be an old computer manual from the 80s or something like
Right, like the Kristen Roos.
Yes.
I mean, there's always covers that are completely their own thing. Kristen Roos's covers are his artwork.
I see.
He does
Okay.
digital artwork. Yeah.
It still is. I don't know. There's still a thread though. There's still a connection to the other pieces.
Right, because I think his art is rooted in technology from the 70s and 80s.
Right.
That was being developed around the same time as these printing processes were prevalent.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, like, you almost don't even have to need to know that. You can just sort of look at them and know that they're coming from a somewhat similar place.
Hey, Scott here. I'll get you back to the episode in just a second, but I wanted to let you know, if you're listening to this and going, you know what? I've been thinking about starting my own record label. I think now is the time. I'm hearing all these people who are just like me, who are doing it and are having fun. Maybe I should as well. Come over to our website, otherrecordlabels.com, where I just continue to collect all of these resources. Most of these resources are free that you can download, including our record label toolkit. And so to grab that, all you have to do is to go to otherrecordlabels.com/toolkit, and you can download our record label toolkit that includes tons of resources like templates and checklists and a record label budget and so much more. Go to otherrecordlabels.com/toolkit. Now back to the interview. I mean, how strict are you on this aesthetic that you've built? And I appreciate it as a fan. I see the consistency. There's about 80% consistency in your catalog with some deviations. How strict are you? I mean, you're working with an artist and they say, no, I don't want you to touch the artwork. I have a vision for it. What happens if that doesn't fall in line with your...
Yeah, I'm pretty strict.
Good. Good.
It's something I've always struggled with because I hate the idea of telling an artist, this is the visual we're going to use for your music.
I know.
It's their album. And so often when I'm lucky, the artist brings something to the table right away and says, this is what I'm feeling for the record cover. And if it's even half what I want,
yeah,
I'm with them.
Okay.
But there have been many times where I kind of just have to go, look, this is what I do. The label is kind of a monster that has its own mind. It has its own momentum. And this is kind of what the vibe of the release artwork is. So we have to find a way to get in there somehow. Yeah. And I mean, I haven't had any like big arguments with artists about it.
Right.
But sometimes it makes the process very long.
Right.
Because you're kind of going back and forth and back and forth. And I find the ones where you go back and forth for a long time end up being kind of the most compromised and uninteresting of the covers.
By both parties, perhaps.
Yeah.
Yeah. I completely agree. And this is a question that I've posed to many labels. Another great Canadian label out your way, Moderna as well. They're in the neoclassical space. They have an alignment with all of their artwork and with their visuals on social. And I completely resonate with you in saying that it feels gross. It feels like a record label of the 80s and the 90s saying, no, we're going to wear this, put on this makeup, wear this hat, wear these shoes.
Yeah. But I was talking with the guy who runs Not Fun Records, and I was asking his advice last year, and he was very adamantly like, don't make anything consistent about your covers. Let the artists lead that process. And it was, I mean, he had so much good advice, but that was one of the only ones where I was like, oh, I don't know what to do with this.
Well, you know, there's a label we've had on the show years ago. I won't say who, and they're probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest label I've ever had. And they've sold 1 trillion records. And they said the exact same thing. Let the artist, the artist, they're completely hands off of the artwork. Yeah. And I could, out of probably 1,000 releases that they've released, I could probably point to 10 that I think have good artwork. The rest look like an art, the musician.
Yeah. I mean, I when I say I struggle with this, I'm being completely honest. Like I genuinely struggle with this, because sometimes I think you shoot yourself in the foot because you maybe don't understand what the artist is going for. You don't understand how that cover that they've come up with is going to resonate 10 years down the line for people, But, in the same way that, like, I don't know, I could see someone in the 90s trying to convince Bonnie Prince Billy or Bill Callahan to make their album covers a little less wonky.
I see what you're saying.
But now you look back on those and you're like, yeah, they couldn't be anything else.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So it's tough.
It's a catch, right? Because you're also thinking, I mean, you're also giving a lot of credit to the artist too, because in a lot of cases, that the artist hasn't put any thought into their artwork, that that's not their area of expertise, or that they even care. Some artists don't care.
Yeah, they're interested in music.
Which is
that's why you're talking to them. I mean,
that's right.
Yeah.
You know what? I hate to kind of revel in your pain here, but I'm actually really glad to hear this, because it's something that I've thought about a lot. We've talked about with certain labels, and I know this will resonate with folks out there who have established an aesthetic. I mean, moving forward, and if I were to start a label today, a brand new label, I would not only build it into my contracts that I have, like, final say, but I would, from day one, I would establish a template or some sort of aesthetic that I would try to stick with, or I would refresh every couple of years. And so that any artist who was submitting their demo knew that they were going, and I would imagine that Jamie, that you've created that already, that most artists would submit music to you hoping that you'll be able to give them one of these album covers. Yeah,
I've had a couple of relationships with artists that have said, I was hoping you would come up with something, which is nice to hear.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, that's exciting. That's just really such an interesting part of the business that a lot of people don't think of. And it's one of the challenges of creating a great looking record label. And here's what I'll say to encourage you and to encourage other people is that, I mean, the name record label, right? It's the term record label is the label on the record.
Right.
And so our roots, so to speak, the foundation of us is curating this product for the music listener.
Mm-hmm.
And in a way, artists have to trust us.
I've put it to artists a couple times as, like, I don't want to tell you what to do, but Hotham Sound is if you think of it more as kind of a place where you can, if you'd like to, you can kind of involve your music with. So it's almost like a geographic location where you can place your music if you'd like to. And this is what the geographic location looks like. Right? So that, I mean, it's your choice.
Right.
But this is kind of what the place is.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Speaking of place, we talked a little bit about the Pacific Northwest. There's a lot of labels who've latched themselves to that identity of being, a lot of labels from the Pacific Northwest who have latched on to that identity, that geographic location. For some reason, it's a romanticized place for music. historically speaking. And I'm saying that as someone who lives a continent away from that. I do romanticize, especially the climate, some of the stuff we talked about in your visuals. So what role does that play? Now you're a little bit more north than some of the Seattle or Portland labels. But tell me a little bit about that geography.
I don't know what it is for most people. For me, it was just growing up on the Gulf Islands when I was a kid. It was very inspiring to me, that world. Everything is connected by the ferries,
right?
Which when I was younger were more of a socialist endeavor. They weren't like cruise ships. They were they were the highways, and
right.
You got around on them. And the Gulf Islands were full of counterculture communities. My mom was a midwife, so we were constantly boating from one island to another for births.
Wow.
And it was just it's all nostalgia, but it was just seemed magical. When I moved later, got older and moved to the city and stuff, it was always seemed lacking.
I see.
And I still live in the city. So there's just a part of my brain that's always going to be nostalgic for not just the place, but the time.
Now, are your artists like predominantly from your area, or is that not a requirement?
Predominantly, but I've been moving away from that a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that'll always be the main focus, but I put out something from someone from New Zealand a couple years ago, and there's a couple of artists from Toronto now that are on the label, and that have something in the works that I really love that's from France. So
wow. I'm hearing less and less labels huddling around a geographic location and more so around an aesthetic or a value system. And so I think that people are, because of globalization, because of the interconnectivity of everything, it's more about this, connecting to someone because of the way they make music, the type of music they make, necessarily than you're from Japan or you're from Vancouver,
Yeah. I think maybe when I started, it was also easier to think of it as a geographic thing because I wasn't very confident about what I was doing. And I knew if I kept it small and just amongst friends, I could probably keep doing it and not, flame out. And that did work.
I think the key to having successful relationships, long-term relationships with artists on your label is working with like-minded people. And there's only so many like-minded people who make music and do the exact same kind of music that is in your head, in your city,
in one location. Yeah. I mean, that you learn that pretty fast when you use the city search function in Bandcamp.
Yeah.
To find people,
I know. I've done that many times. I love that feature. I love narrowing down, but then you go, there's only one artist who plays this kind of jazz in this town.
Then you start clicking on the other cities.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I want to go back to something you said, because I feel like we haven't really kind of pulled that out yet, teased it out, just that idea of that personal intimacy with this type of music. And I'm sure I know there are people doing this type of music live. I've seen this type of music live. I've paid to go see it. I've seen it in house shows and record stores. But I much prefer it on headphones, as you said, on long drives by myself, in times where I don't want lyrics to interfere with my thoughts or with my conversations, and just that intimacy. And I feel like as an artist who I make this type of music, and I also make more mainstream vocal music. And I feel like I have an objective for both of those two different types of music. On the vocal side of music, it's about connecting with people through my voice, through my lyrics, through the melody, and it's a little bit more mainstream and accessible, a lot more mainstream and accessible. Whereas the ambient side of things is more about personal expression. The vocal side of things, I look at my numbers daily. I make sure that people are listening to this on a daily basis. My ambient stuff, I don't care. There could be there could be zero listeners. I'm the only listener that matters. Do you think there's truth to that? Does that have legs in how the music is presented?
Sorry, I'm not sure what you're asking me there.
No, I'm sorry. Does that resonate? Does that thought resonate? I'm basically just kind of teasing out what you already started at the start of this conversation, but just I'm just kind of astonished that I haven't been able to put my finger on it. Just how personal, how intimate listening to this type of music is.
Yeah, I don't know.
And how it's almost a reflection of how the artist makes it as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's this cliche at this point of like the bedroom producer, or the person in their room or in the attic or whatever making them stuff, and that always really appealed to me.
Yeah,
going back to, I probably first encountered that idea, the kind of hermit music creator, through the early Warp stuff.
Yeah, right.
Because it mythologized, that aspect of Aphex Twin or whoever. And but it's that still is a huge key point for me, is that idea of someone who is making music in a way that you would normally think of like a painter or a writer.
Wow.
Working, and not a performer.
That's profound.
So and I mean, that also probably just ties in with how when I was in college, I loved live music. I went to live music all the time, but it's not a huge force in my life anymore. The music is a huge force in my life. Yeah. So I tend to gravitate towards this music that's made for listening, not necessarily for performing.
I mean, that's incredible. That's such a great visual, the painter or the writer. I think about when you said bedroom musician, I think about when we were kids, we used to try to put the cans on the strings and then rope it to our friend's house across the street, and never worked. Yeah. But like it's almost as if we get to do that with the guy or girl in their bedroom,
completely
making something. We're the only ones who get to hear it.
Yeah, it's like ham radio or something, where you're like got people all over the world. There's someone in Russia you're occasionally picking up or something.
Yeah. Talk to me about cassettes. We talked a little bit about the artwork and how a lot of your primary artwork is derived from the J-card layout. I've known your label as a cassette label. I don't know if you identify as a cassette label. As you mentioned, you're dabbling soon in vinyl, and I know that some of your artists have dabbled in vinyl before. Give us your insights onto how things are, being a cassette label, and perhaps the present role of physical media, and then perhaps the future role of physical media for your label.
Well, I started the label as a digital only label.
Okay.
Like the first year and a half, maybe, was just a couple of digital releases. And then I had people who liked the music, but I had enough people reach out to me who said, you've got to you've got to be able to put something in people's hands or no one cares. And so my first thought was cassettes, because I didn't have a relationship to CDs, and vinyl was obviously way too expensive. So, and I had a cassette player, and I've always liked cassettes. I always liked I really liked the way that cassettes are miniature versions of the actual material that albums have always been recorded on. Like a cassette is one of the only things that is an actual recordable device. Even if you buy a cassette on album, you can switch the tabs and record something on top of it. It's a recording material.
Yeah.
That just is, there's something cool about that to me.
Well, the vertical nature of them too, from a design standpoint, those jumbo ass spines, they were so unique on their own. Whereas a digital CD and vinyl all kind of copied the square format, and then there's that orphan cassettes.
Yeah. And no one really knew, I guess, what to do with cassettes in their heyday, design wise.
Yeah.
So most of the time they just put the album cover up top and then put the text below, like a little gravestone or something,
I know. Yeah, that's so funny. So did you embrace cassettes in any way because they seem to be connected to this genre, like experimental music, noise music? Cassettes seem to lend itself, especially that texture we were talking about. Did that play a role in your decision?
I've always liked the way cassettes sound.
Yeah.
When I hear that criticism, I just completely tune out because it doesn't matter to me. Like I like things that sound like they're coming through a medium. And then that ties into how the design works too. I like things that look like they've been through a process. I don't like design really that looks like just a straight window into the world. Yeah. I like something that looks like it's been through something.
Yeah.
So cassettes have a higher noise floor than vinyl or CD. But I don't really care. Like, to me, that's a feature.
Not a bug. Yeah. And the high end is less represented as well. So it has a warmer,
the high end. Yeah. Okay. So again, that's interesting. You brought that up because that's also something that's always appealed to me. I think because I had a lot of cassettes when I was growing up. None of them had a really sparkly high end. Mm-hmm. They're all kind of mid-range. And that's how I sort of heard music. Yeah. So when we got into, especially the early CD era, where everything was so bright, it was like glass brittle in your ear. Yeah. I just didn't respond to that at all. Yeah. So yeah, I guess there's a nostalgic element in there for me too, of how media sounded when I was younger.
And we're probably similar in age too. And the early MP3s they had high end, but it was just really painful.
I found a couple of old collections of MP3s that I downloaded recently from SoulSeek, back in the day, and was listening to them, and I just could not believe what I had put up with. Yeah. Sound quality wise.
Well, even as I talk to you right now over Zoom, the audio, we're stretching across a continent, and the audio is that digitized, super SE high end. Yeah. It rubs me the wrong way, and I feel like that's why people our age gravitate to vinyl and to cassettes, because it is 100% not digital.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know why the general assumption on everyone's part is that everything has to look or sound like you're looking at it through a high focus, macro sharp microscope. Like I don't understand why people want to look at the world like that. I think your eyes are for that.
I actually don't think people do. I think they just repeat a refrain that they've heard. I think it's just like a crowd mentality, and they just repeat, oh, well, the sound quality of vinyl or cassettes is inferior or whatever. I actually think that we do crave that. And anybody who listens to a perfect major label release with high fidelity, a lot of people are listening to it on their iPhone speakers or on their laptop speakers.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's just the nature of convenience at this point.
Yeah. So I don't. I'm like you though. I ignore any when people talk about cassettes but then there are records, and the records I have of yours, especially stuff that contains textured lo-fi beats. It just feels like the format is cassette, and I can't tell you how many people are mixing music to sound like it's on cassette, cassette plugins, tape plugins. So
yeah, it's weird. The medium, when I was getting into cassettes, like getting into cassettes as an adult, I did notice that there were artists that I really liked that their music seemed to be cassette music. Yeah, like one of my the big inspirations for me when I was starting the label was this guy Norm Chambers. who
Okay.
performed as Panabright, and he passed away recently. But his music, almost all of it came out on cassette. And near the end of his life, there were some vinyl releases, but I thought of him as a cassette artist. And it wasn't just that, like, that's what seemed to work out for him financially or whatever. It was the music itself seemed to be made for cassette. It sounded like cassette.
Interesting.
And so when I would hear his music on vinyl, I enjoyed it, but it always seemed like
that's
round, square peg, sort of thing.
Well, I feel that way about 80s music, about 80s pop. I feel like Lindrums and Juno synthesizers, that type of stuff sounds really great on cassette. But that could just be nostalgia. That could be just right. How I first heard it.
Yeah, well, Lindrums and stuff like that, they already sound so compressed. You add the extra cassette compression and they just sound great. I think so too.
Yeah. So then what role does vinyl play? Because when I look at your label, it feels to me like you're a cassette label. I would think there's a lot of labels in your position where you feel pressured to do vinyl or obligated to do vinyl when things are going well right now. So how do you navigate that decision-making process?
It's just personal interest, I think. I mean, it's been 10 years of doing cassettes.
Yeah.
And I don't want to stop doing cassettes. I think I'm just interested in exploring vinyl aesthetically. And it might not be something I want to keep doing. We might do a couple of vinyl releases and then just keep doing cassettes. I don't know. But it just feels like a good time to branch out a little bit and try it. Because I love vinyl. It's not like I'm a cassette, monster, and vinyl is completely out of my wheelhouse. I have a big vinyl collection. Like,
has your audience been asking for it?
Oh yeah,
I imagine. So, how do you plan to transfer this? You talked about the artwork being, you wanted it to feel like it was, not just a digital Photoshop creation, but that it was put together by hand or having some sort of. So how do you translate that on? And I thought the packages that you've made on cassette over the years have been great. You got to carry that through onto vinyl, right? You've got to make it feel like it's human made.
Mm-hmm.
That's a challenge because it's more expensive.
Yeah, I think the vinyl covers might be a little more of a template. With like a very simple, maybe, possibly no text on the front and then very simple text on the back. Are you? Yeah, I don't know. I've done a couple of vinyl designs, but not many. And it is a totally different thing. The scale up is intimidating because cassettes are so tiny. I mean, you're designing a postage stamp basically. So it's when you scale up to vinyl,
it's too big.
Often what happens is it's shocking how big the text is that you've designed when you see it on vinyl. You're like, oh, whoa, wait a minute. Like you have to kind of do a lot of test prints and stuff.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's almost too big of a canvas. You have to treat it. You have to treat it be really delicate with it. I got a record. Somebody gifted me their independent release a couple years ago, and I looked on the back, and the track listing was monstrous,
just huge,
and the barcode was like that big, and I'm like, uh-oh, you just scaled up the CD or something. It was too big. Yeah.
But sometimes I think it's just your eyes adjusting. After 10 years of tapes for me,
right?
To see a vinyl record as a massive thing is almost. I mean, most people would find that hilarious. It's this big, It's not something massive, but to me, it just looks like a skyscraper.
Yeah, no, you're right. One of my favorite releases, my favorite artwork you've ever done is most recently the Harbor of the North Wind record.
Oh, thanks.
The use of hand drawn text and then actual text, and then of course the collage images and stuff, and then the white space. But there's something. What's so special about that is that when you look at it, you see it as an actual piece of art. But I could imagine that if you were to blow that up to 12 by 12, it's like what we talked about. Like our eyes see too much information, and I feel like now I would be almost seeing it. I don't know. I could see that being a challenge. It's not as simple as just blowing that up.
No, not at all. Yeah.
Interesting. That's so
That's
fun.
why, for the moment anyway, my head is kind of thinking like maybe just an image, no text.
Yeah.
Just because it seems overwhelming.
Yeah. I mean, and maybe some DIY elements, maybe a spine or maybe something that is like signature to you that ties in, that connects to the cassettes or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Real quick, this is silly to end with this question, but can you give me the history of the label? We've been talking all this time.
Just like how it got started, you mean?
Sure. Or? Yeah. Actually, how long have you guys been around? I've always known you to be
10 years.
Oh,
10 years this year.
Well, there you go. Congratulations. 2015.
Yeah. 2015.
Okay.
I was making music in a very, just for myself way.
Yeah.
And I just gotten out of a very long-term relationship and had a horrible breakup. Moved back to Vancouver. Didn't really know anybody. Most of my friends had moved away. And so I started the label just to put my own music out, basically.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to go through the submission process because it's awful.
Yeah.
And I put out music from a friend of mine and then another friend and then it just sort of kept going. I honestly did not expect it to go this long.
Do you remember in the past 10 years when you went from just this little idea to being, we actually have a fan base of some sort that is somewhat anticipating our next release? Like, do you remember what year that was?
It was probably around when The People's Forest came out.
Okay.
Because the response to that was really big and that had a couple months there where I was kind of shocked at how many people were writing and
I bought that record.
Listening.
That's funny.
And
yeah. I mean, I had heard of you and I'd been following you before that. But okay, so that was like not that long ago. That's what, 22? I'm just guessing. I'm checking. It's 21. Okay. 21. So a little over halfway through.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. I asked that question because we have a lot of labels in our community and a lot of labels who are listening and a lot of people who are not yet have created a record label who are kind of like, okay, when does it catch on? Like, when does somebody go to my website, my Bandcamp, and see us as a label with a deep catalog?
Yeah. That's a really good question. I don't know. It's a mystery, what that tipping point is.
Is it in your case, it was just an album, sort of?
I think that album just came out at the right time or something.
Yeah.
And it generated interest in the albums that had come before it. But honestly, I don't know.
This just made me think about it. When you're talking about doing vinyl and you're talking about your template, is your idea to do new releases on vinyl, or are you thinking about reissues going back into your catalog?
New releases, but there are one or two that I have thought maybe might be a good reissue as well.
Yeah,
I think that Alexi Barris album that we put out is still one of the best things we've ever done, and I feel like not enough people have heard it.
Tell me about the Hotham Sound. Where does that come from?
It's a sound in BC, sort of between the upper Sunshine Coast and the lower Sunshine Coast.
It's a sound.
It's a really deep sound.
Oh, like an actual frequency?
Oh no, sorry. It's a sound. It's an inlet. That's in the ocean.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And
so it's like they test submarines and stuff there because it's abnormally deep.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and I lived up there for a little while, so I would canoe into the sound. I just like the way it sounded.
And I think it's a great name, and it's a great way that you've kind of interconnected the visuals of your label with your geographic location, the name of the label. And I mean, honestly, I might be projecting here, but that sound of the ocean, that sound of wind, the mountains, of rain, which you get a lot of, that's the texture that we hear on these releases, if not literally, but it's texture to life.
Yeah, I could talk about that for forever. I love that stuff. Yeah.
When I come up to the studio where I am right now, if it's a rainy day, I come up here every day, and usually I'm here to my desk to work on the podcast or something. If it's a rainy day, I'm more likely not to work on the podcast. I'm more likely to make music. Isn't that weird?
Yeah. No, it's great.
Yeah. If it's a beautiful sunny day, then I go to work.
Yeah. That's one of the best things about having an attic studio.
Yes.
Is you get the direct rain.
Yes, the pitter patter.
It's not coming through 2 or 3 floors.
That's right. I know. Yeah, I have it on some of my records as well. Just the
nice
pitter patter. Yeah. Congratulations on your label. I'm a big fan. I am forever subscribed, and I'm always excited to see what you release. And so keep doing it.
Thanks so much, man.
Hey, listener, don't be a dum-dum. Go to hothamsound.com to check out this incredible record label. That's Hotham, spelled Hotham sound.com. The link is in the description of this episode. You could also go to hothamsound.bandcamp.com. One of my favorite labels. Such a great time chatting with them. And I hope you found some nice little nuggets to inspire you on your own record label journey, wherever you're at. If you are in the department looking for a new digital distributor, please check out our sponsor, Lander, by going to otherrecordlabels.com/Lander, and you'll get 20% off your subscription. Thanks for listening.